And I definitely wouldn't have voted for Bobby Kennedy because he had the same ideas as John did, and I think John sold the country down the road. He gave it to the commies. He gave it to whoever else he wanted to. He literally gave it to the minority. He says, "Here, this is it. You take over. I'm giving it to you. You run the white man. Nobody should be run. I'm not saying that the white should be the slave to the black or the black the slave to the white, but he turned the pendulum too far the other way." I'm not a Democrat.
Yeah.
So it had nothing to do with that. I was going down there just for the money.
Now, who did you vote for in November?
Wallace.
Pardon me?
George Wallace. The people in Europe, I don't care where you go, hate our guts.
They do?
They hate us. They'd like to stick a knife in our back. I want to know why? Because they're tired of us giving them everything. They've had it crammed down their throat for so many years. It's just like the black man. The black man now for the last 4 to 8 years has been cramming this integrated idea down our throat, and so you've learned to hate them. And one of these days, at the rate they're going, there's going to be a civil war in this country. It's going to be the white against the black, and the only thing I'd say is the black will never win.
Did you see any security guards in that kitchen pantry?
There was a security man somewhere behind me. I don't know how far away from me.
On what side?
I somewhere around right on the left side, you know, right behind Kennedy, somewhere around there.
We also know, I've found this in the files recently, that various parts of the hotel were guarded by different guards. Eugene Cesar was one of several guards hired by the hotel through a security. A security had like 8 or 10 guys there that night. And different guards were being very good at their posts and checking people's ID and only letting certain people in. But for whatever reason, the kitchen was constantly unguarded, and one of the Kennedy staffers is complaining to the police in the files about how she had to keep shooing people out of the kitchen. No one was supposed to be there except press people, or certainly Robert Kennedy and his immediate, attendants. But the person who was charged with guarding the kitchen door was St. Eugene Cesar. So, I mean, if you wanted to have a guy, in there to make sure Sirhan got into the room, because frankly, if your patsy doesn't get in the pantry, the whole plot is off, right? You got to get him into the pantry, and the only way to do that is to make sure whoever's guarding the room is going to let him in. So I find it really interesting that St. Eugene Cesar was the guard stationed at the kitchen that night.
Cesar's gun was never inspected after the shooting, and evidence proves that there was more shots fired than the 8 rounds that could be held in Sirhan's .22. With several witnesses seeing Cesar draw his gun and firing shots, it is not hard to believe that this was never brought up during the trials and something done about it. Since Cesar got a security job just days before the assassination, it is to my belief that he was involved in the operation and quite possibly on the CIA's payroll. In Cesar's testimony, he lies about what kind of gun he has and does not mention at all that he fired any shots. In this testimony, you can notice that he adamantly made it a point to be directly behind and to the right of Kennedy, and hesitates when he states what kind of gun he had, but makes sure to explain in full the details of his gun so that it could not be linked as the second gun. A liar, committing perjury, and a traitor to American sovereignty.
Now, would you tell me what you did when Mr. Kennedy walked close to you and what you did up till the time of the shooting?
As far as the other security officers, they were behind me trying to keep most of the people from following. And I went ahead of them and got alongside of Senator Kennedy and grabbed a hold of his right arm and sort of pushed our way through the crowd. As we got to the icebox area and a row of steam cabinets, Senator Kennedy stopped and sort of turned and broke away from me to shake hands with a couple of gentlemen at the edge of the steam table. I think they were busboys.
All right.
At this time, I was up against the icebox, approximately 12, 14 inches, 2 feet ahead of Senator Kennedy. I had my eyes on the senator when he moved up forward a little more to shake hands with him. I happened to turn around and look up, and just as I looked up, I seen a gun, and when I seen it, it went off. At this time, the maitre d' in front of me to my right either ducked or jumped or something, but he knocked me down against the icebox. I scrambled to my feet, pulled my gun, and meantime, several of the camera crews and whoever was standing around there had grabbed the man that had done the shooting
Cesar's clip-on tie lay on the floor beside Robert Kennedy after the shooting. Here we see Cesar without his tie nearly an hour later.
I had a Sam Brown on with a 38 revolver with a 4-inch barrel.
Cesar's gun was never checked on the night of the shooting. He told police he had sold his .22 3 months before the assassination.
A receipt proves that it was sold after the assassination. The person who made out this receipt confirmed Cesar told him at the time of the sale, "Be careful of this weapon, it was involved in a police shooting." He was the obvious first suspect. The police brushed him off and never investigated him further.
The CIA's involvement with the assassination of Bobby Kennedy is quite apparent, as I am quite certain that in any case in which key evidence and witnesses are destroyed and discarded, it is obviously the work of people in contacts with higher places, as this could only explain how the evidence could have been tampered with in the first place. Who else could have access or authority to be able to manipulate the evidence like this? Many believe that Siran was among the first people to be used in a top-secret CIA operation called Artichoke. The main goals of this operation was to see if anyone could be brainwashed or governmentaled into doing actions that they were not aware of, or could forget about afterwards. A movie made in the later 50s starring Janet Leigh and Frank Sinatra called The Manchurian Candidate may have been where the CIA got its influence for the Artichoke program, or vice versa. The mandate of Project Artichoke, just as with the CIA's MK-Ultra program, was behavioral modification and control.
Normally conditioned American who's been trained to kill, then to have no memory of having killed. Without memory of his deed, he cannot possibly feel guilt, nor will he of course have any reason to fear being caught. And having been relieved of those uniquely American symptoms, guilt and fear, he cannot possibly give himself away.
I told them to build me an assassin. I wanted a killer from a world filled with killers, and they chose you.
It's a terrible thing to hate your mother. But I didn't always hate her.
The preceding is from Richard Condon's novel, The Manchurian Candidate, which in 1962 became a hit movie, in which Lawrence Harvey played Raymond Shaw, a highly decorated prisoner of war who was brainwashed by his North Korean captors to become a robot assassin programmed to murder the president. Unknown to millions of people who thrilled to this taut tale in theaters across America, the Central Intelligence Agency, at the time, through its MK-Ultra program, was devoting large resources to see if by drugs, electroshock, or hypnotism, a robot assassin could in fact be created. Common wisdom, of course, holds that a person cannot be programmed to do something that he would find morally objectionable. But not everyone believes that.
After receiving a small dose of LSD, they're confused and undisciplined.
The notion that you can't be hypnotized to do something you're not morally inclined to do was clearly disproved by our government.
Dr. Philip Melanson is the author of the recently released book, The Robert Kennedy Assassination, in which he investigates the hypnoprogramming aspects of the Kennedy murder. Dr. Melanson has spent over a decade looking through government mind control files.
The experts that they had doing this kind of research believed you could do that. They demonstrated how it could be done both in their own practices and in their work for the government. And millions of dollars was spent and hundreds of people were worked on and were made to do those things. And the successful uses of hypno-programmed persons as couriers and spies is admitted by the government. The government refuses to admit assassination, but clearly they had that technology available as well. And it can be done. The mainstream of the medical profession and the experts think it can't be done or choose to believe it can't be done. But the broad group working for the government believed it could be done and demonstrated that they could do it.
If there had been some handlers, whether from the CIA or whoever, they had a pretty fit subject on their hands there in Siran. But the fact that so many years have passed and he stuck to that story lead me to think that he really didn't remember shooting Robert Kennedy, that he probably killed Kennedy in a trance and was programmed to forget that he'd done it and programmed to forget the names and identities of others who might have helped him do it.
Dr. Herbert Spiegel is a world authority on hypnosis and has taught at Columbia University for over 40 years.
We have a test that I developed. It's called the Hypnotic Induction Profile. On a 0 to 5 scale, 15 to 20% of the population are zeros. That includes the mentally ill people like schizophrenics, severely depressed people, and some of the severe psychopathic personalities or severe obsessive compulsive are not hypnotizable. They don't have the biological capacity for it. On the high side, about 5 to 10% of the population are extremely hypnotizable, and then most people are in between.
Most people cannot be programmed to do something against their moral values.
They would have enough of their conscious awareness and they would break off their hypnotic relationship. But with a high, they lose that connection with their everyday perspective. They adopt the new perspective 100%.
Dr. Spiegel demonstrated this in a film he made in 1967 with NBC newscaster Frank McGee.
The subject is 40 years old, resides in New York City, and his general political orientation is somewhat left of center.
All right, now I'm going to count to 3. Now ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, now you try to open your eyes and won't be able to do it. Try. Okay, there is a communist plot developing that is aimed to control all the major radio and TV networks in this country. When you're questioned about this, no matter who doubts you, you will hold firmly to this conviction, and furthermore, you will urge them to alert themselves to it. In fact, at some time you may be shown a sheet of paper with 3 names on it. And if you're pressed hard enough, you'll even reveal what you know about those 3 named persons. However, at some later time, when I touch your left shoulder, you will burst into laughter and acknowledge this to be a big joke done as an experiment in human behavior. Well, how do you feel?
Pretty good.
Pretty good?
Yeah.
All right. Do you remember anything about after I counted to 3?
No. I wonder if NBC knows what's going on.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the front pages are covered with all kinds of news, but the communist infiltration of it, my God, they don't know about the mass media. You know, the radio and television stations of this country are important means of reaching the people, and here we are unaware of it.
Oh, come on. Unaware of what?
Well, I should think that when we realize how many millions of people are reached, and that the people in charge of the programming could be the dupes of the Communist Party, my God, we could brainwash the whole population.
I'm going to hand you a sheet of paper and ask you that the names on this paper were not present that night.
Responding to the hypnotic stimulus, he is now hallucinating 3 names.
Yes.
They were there?
Yes. I don't know that one name.
You don't know that one name?
No.
But you do know the other 2?
Yes.
How many are there? How many names are there?
3.
3.
But slowly but surely, the networks, TV and radio, are going to be under the control of the Communist Party. That's already in full swing, and it's going to get more and more so. And that we better do something about it before people begin believing the communist way of life. I feel so strongly about it that it makes me tremble to think what might happen in this country.
What's so funny?
Oh, you've been playing tricks with me.
What's on this paper?
Nothing. Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing. What's supposed to be on there?
What do you make of it?
I'm absolutely dumbfounded. I really am. I don't think that way or believe that way.
It worries me that I could be made to have these thoughts, which are so foreign to my own self-beliefs.